SpaceX has quite literally opened the floodgates this week with a long-awaited full deluge test at Pad 2, checking off some of the last objectives before booster static fire and full-stack testing kicks off. The FAA has also released a finding of no significant impact regarding recent environmental assessment, paving the way for additional launch trajectories and landing corridors in Starbase itself, a critical step towards Starship reaching operational status. The first section for a fourth Starship tower has been transported to Slick 37 itself when we least expected it, and the truss structure at Massey's is getting chopsticks? From the Space Coast of Florida to South Texas, we have all of that coming up and more on this week's Starship Update, sponsored by the book by Hungry Minds. After months of anticipation, SpaceX finally conducted a full deluge test at Pad 2 this week. The first hints of this incoming test came with the removal of scaffolding from the top of the launch mount deck and then the hold-down arm door swinging open, just as they would for a booster on the launch mount. They also ran a full-speed retraction test with both booster quick disconnects simultaneously for good measure. Next came a detonation suppression system test, or DSS. The DSS fills the area under the launch mount with a mixture of water and nitrogen in a mist form to displace oxygen, depriving the environment of necessary conditions for an explosion or detonation to occur. Insert infamous Booster 7's spin boom here. No oxygen means no ignition. The chopsticks joined in on the action this week as well, rising all the way to the top of the tower while the SQD arm swung aside to let them pass by. We then noticed some water beginning to dribble from the launch mount's top deck, a clear indication that the deluge system was primed and ready. With the hold-down arm doors visibly open above the deck, we caught them closing one by one, sealing off the internals from any unwanted water flow inside of the launch mount. The night before, the booster transport stand was moved to Pad 2's lifting station for more simulation testing before being cleared from the pad for the main event, and making this more of a complete test run, not just a spray of the deluge. Before unleashing the deluge, SpaceX took advantage of the raised chopsticks to install tower cladding at higher levels, filling a gap that's normally blocked when they're down in their normal position. And now, finally, it's time for the main event, the full deluge test. Water first appeared from the trench's flame bucket, something we've seen in isolated tests before. Seconds later, though, the top deck erupted into a massive fountain, sending towering walls of water in all directions. Woo! Oh, we're getting wet! Some cars on Highway 4 must have gotten a bit of a free car wash with how far the mist must have traveled. In a rather meme-worthy moment, a soil compactor at the expansion site must have missed a memo and got a front row seat for the test, before casually backing away. The big question here though is this: did the deluge activate at full power as if it was a real-life launch scenario? The geyser vents from the mini Raptors, which pressurized the trench and water system as a whole, didn't reach the tower's full height like we've seen in previous tests before this. The top deck lacks any sort of geyser vent, so it's tough to say there, but the trench itself may not have been maxed out power-wise, which is kind of crazy because that was a lot of water. After the test, crews painted the tower's corner pillars, not just for a fresh look, but to protect against Starbase's salty air. As we've seen before with Pad 1, and anyone who's lived near a body of salty water before, corrosion is pretty nasty. Some of the last milestones we may see before a booster arrives at Pad 2 for the first time is heavy purging of the lines across the tank farm and the pad itself. This is crucial to flush out any foreign object debris, or FOD, from construction, which could destroy sensitive components in a booster or a ship. Nobody wants that kind of surprise. Real quick as well, the chopsticks were also raised for a second time this week. However, this time, they stayed below the ship quick disconnect arm, therefore not needing it to move out of the way. It looked like teams were inspecting the rail system itself, where the chopstick carriage system is actually attached to and is guided up and down by. Now, we're not sure if this was because an issue was noticed somewhere or what, but based on the order of events so far, we're really not that concerned. Although the week wasn't quite as exciting for Pad 1 as it was for Pad 2, work continues at the site to bring it back online as soon as possible with the newest design of flame trench and launch mount, as we've seen both at Pad 2 and LC-39A so far. More sheet piles have been installed to keep the water out during digging operations for the trench. Being so close to the Gulf and right at sea level, SpaceX is battling a very high water table, so digging anything here is a real challenge. As more sheet piles have been installed, the chopsticks have been opened to make room for the crane to move about as needed. The chopsticks are currently unable to move themselves due to all of their motors being removed, so SpaceX hooked the right stick up to a bulldozer and pulled it into an open position manually. You know, building Pad 2 with the lessons learned from Pad 1 has been no small feat, let alone getting the entire Starship program as a whole to where it is now, considering the years and years of testing and failures to this point. SpaceX has had to build everything from the ground up. But if you would like to learn about building some of humanity's greatest accomplishments and technological achievements from the ground up, you can get yourselves a copy of the book from today's video sponsor, Hungry Minds.
This video is sponsored by the book from Hungry Minds. Not just any book, the book. It's a large, beautifully illustrated guide on rebuilding civilization from the ground up. So when we land on another planet, this will be the book you want to have with you. But until that point, it's a wonderful book for adults to peruse the history of science and inventions. Everything from automatons and military inventions to optics and photography. The hand-drawn art makes it a spectacular coffee table book, but it's also so much more, with each of over 400 pages teaching new details about the world around us and how civilization grew to its current point. If you really want to dive in, there's even a hidden quest within. Only 7 people in the world have completely solved the quest. So you can dive in and follow the hints to get started on your path. You can get 10% off the book by using promo code NSF. So scan that QR code or click the link in the video description and be sure to use promo code NSF for 10% off. Thanks to Hungry Minds for sponsoring, and now back to the video.
More scaffolding has gone up around the ASU modules this week, mainly at the connection points where said modules will all be linked together. Expect plumbing sections to arrive here soon for their connections to be made. That's not the only work on the modules though. Crews have been sanding and painting them for salt air protection, just like they did with Tower 2. After removing the boom from their LR-11000 crane last week, SpaceX returned the entire unit to the launch site this week after completing its necessary tasks. Even with its own tracks, the crane's weight is concentrated in a small area, risking damage to the ground or road if it rolls solo. That's why big crawler cranes often use wooden cribbing, which are bundled pillars laid flat to spread the load over a larger area. SPMTs have the exact same effect here, which is crucial to minimizing wear on Highway 4, though it's still pretty much riddled with holes and bumps as many of us have become used to by now. Last week, the FAA issued a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, on the final tiered environmental assessment for the new launch trajectories and reentry and recovery profiles for Starbase itself. The FAA stated that they had found no unresolved conflicts concerning alternative resource use from SpaceX's proposal, therefore authorizing the company's desired adaptations. SpaceX still needs a license modification though for full orbital flights, which of course is required for a ship to be able to circle the globe and make it back to Starbase. So what does this environmental assessment actually accomplish here then? It, well, assesses the environmental implications of those orbital missions and on-site ship recoveries at Starbase. Reentry over land brings large considerations, like the potential risk of debris scattering across the entire entry corridor if the ship breaks up in a worst-case scenario, posing danger to those on the ground. Noise is also another factor here. Hypersonic reentry comes with the side effect of leaving sonic booms in the wake of your spacecraft, which can be heard for hundreds of miles in all directions, given the altitudes and speeds involved here. For anybody who's heard the sonic booms of the Space Shuttle, Falcon 9 booster landings, and especially those of Super Heavy and Starbase, you know exactly how aggressive they can be. NOTAMs for air traffic and not MARS for maritime procedures will clear airspace and waterways to keep people and property at a safe distance during re-entry. As Starship proves itself to be more reliable well into its operational service, these exclusion zones could decrease in size. More flights means more data for safer operations, which is exactly what we have seen so far from Falcon 9, for example. Overall, this environmental assessment moves SpaceX closer to orbital Starlink version 3 deployments, in-space refueling, ship reuse, and NASA's Starship human landing system, of course. Even though we still may have to wait a bit longer for Flight 12, SpaceX is pushing for a quick turnaround for Flight 13, which means cranking out both Ship 40 and Booster 20 as fast as possible. On Tuesday, an aft section for Ship 40 rolled out to Megabay 2 and was lifted inside for stacking. That brought Ship 40 to 13 rings tall, leaving just the transfer tubes and 2 more aft sections to complete the ship stack. Or so he says, because on Saturday night, another aft section rolled out of Starfactory and into Megabay 2, pushing Ship 40 to 17 rings out of 21 needed. Next up, installing those transfer tubes. We haven't seen much from Booster 19 in a while, not since it rolled back into Megabay 1 following cryo testing at Massey's. And this is probably a sign of progress, as the booster should be undergoing engine installation right now, which is exciting in itself. This is all in preparation for a static fire campaign, hopefully in the coming weeks. But because of those pesky doors on Megabay 1, there's not much else that we can see. We'll have to be patient as always. And unfortunately, it's a similar story with Ship 39, as our views have also been limited, in part thanks to Gigabay going up here in combination with the doors on Megabay 2. We do expect it to roll out in the very near future though to begin testing. It has to in order for SpaceX to launch in March or April. We will of course be keeping our eyes on it. Checking in on Starfactory now. The transfer tube installation jig is being prepared for Ship 40. There are 5 transfer tubes to install. The large one in the center supplies methane from the main tank to the 3 sea-level Raptors during launch and in-space burns. The 3 outer tubes feed methane to the vacuum-optimized Raptors, or RVACs, a shift from Block 1 singular tube design that split closer to the thrust puck. One key upgrade for Block 2 and Block 3 design, though, is vacuum jacketing around said transfer tubes. An inner and outer wall with a vacuum pulled in between them for optimal temperature installation. No gas or matter in between the tubes means there is little or no matter to conduct heat, preventing any sort of temperature fluctuation that would otherwise want to boil off propellant or freeze it solid. The 5th tube here though isn't for methane, it's for liquid oxygen, transferring LOX from the nose cone header tanks to the sea-level engines during deorbit and landing burns. The methane header tank works very similarly. Its transfer tube, inside of the methane tank along with the header tank itself, routes methane to the center tube for sea-level Raptors as well. And quick update on the hot stage test article in Starfactory. After removing some struts last week, SpaceX reinstalled them this week. This either suggests that it's getting a second shot at testing and proving its design at Massey's, or it's further practice for teams to replace damaged units on flight-proven boosters. But for the time being, it looks safe from scrapping anytime soon. And speaking of hardware heading to scrap, the aft section of Booster 17 is still in the rocket garden, sitting on a booster transport stand. This week, a crane with a load spreader pulled up and hooked up to it. It's still attached as of now, but we expect it to be lifted off soon and hauled to the scrapyard. Once free, that transfer stand should be converted to support Block 3 boosters, making it the 3rd one upgraded for the task. When V3 flight cadence ramps up, it'll be nice to have as many available transport stands as possible to avoid bottlenecks. More boosters moving to and from the launch site could create queues in Megabay 1 or even on the orbital launch mount, all waiting for a ride. Kinda like the early Pad 1 days where hardware used to just sit at the launch site, like boosters and ships. To make the most of these transport stands though, SpaceX needs a line of new vehicles, and that's where Gigabay comes in. This week, the tower cranes began lifting pillars for its 4th level. We're still a ways off from Gigabay churning out ships or boosters, but watching it grow level by level brings us closer to that reality, one day at a time. Starbase, as you all see it today, of course was not built overnight. A closer look shows the cranes are just barely tall enough to place beams as they're needed right now, so they'll need to raise themselves again soon. But how do these cranes actually raise themselves higher when they're already surrounded by the rest of Gigabay? In short, these cranes are designed to self-elevate. The tower it sits on is built from stacked segments, with the crane assembly sitting on top. Below the crane assembly itself is a special cage-like segment that has an opening on one side. The crane picks up a new tower segment, lifts it above the stack to make room, and inserts it through the cage's opening. It literally builds itself. Once attached, its overall height increases, and they repeat this until the crane reaches its required height before returning its attention and efforts towards the building it's actually there for. Workers have also been painting the beams of Gigabay white. While they won't be exposed to salty air forever, walls and cladding are coming after all, the paint itself provides interim protection, and it matches the clean white interiors of both Starfactory and Megabase 1 and 2. Now it's time to move over to Massey's, where SpaceX is wrapping up on construction on the brand new truss structure at the ship's static fire stand. For the past few months, they've been building this truss above the ship quick disconnect gantry. Until recently though, its purpose wasn't entirely clear and we could not figure it out. But now it looks designed to stress test a ship's catch points and flaps during pre-launch campaigns. The truss features arms and bumpers similar to the tower chopsticks positioned at the catch point height. So in theory, a ship could roll to the stand, run a 6-engine static fire, simulate a deorbit burn with a single engine, load test the flat motors during re-entry, and even simulate a landing burn while the arms apply force to the actual catch pins, which simulate a catch. With reusability serving as a key to faster launch cadence, pre-flight flap and catch point testing is essential for vehicle reliability. Here's to hoping this expanded campaign boosts ship success rates for future recovery and reflight. With test tank B18.1 having finished its campaign and leaving the can crusher last week, crews have continued removing actuators from the cage itself. It's currently unknown what the future of this cage entails, but we'll for sure be keeping an eye out for possible use and testing of new hardware here, especially as V3 design evolves and into version 4. A while ago, we began to see SpaceX moving composite overwrap pressure vessels, or COPVs, over to Massey's. This week was no different as we saw even more of them headed this way. COPVs are placed inside of ship nose cones and booster aft shines to provide nitrogen gas for pressurizing and relighting Raptor engines, among other uses. SpaceX tests all COPVs at the McGregor test site, where they also verify Raptor engines after production. But COPVs have caused Starship to throw some temper tantrums before, even after testing at McGregor. We are looking at you, Ship 36. Well, and Booster 18, but still. So as a result, SpaceX began verification testing of COPVs at Starbase to ensure their structural integrity before being mounted to ships or boosters. And speaking of McGregor, it's time for our McGregor Minute. SpaceX's premier engine testing facility has been buzzing with Raptors this week. Sea level, vacuum variants, and even what looks like a booster test tank arriving on site. I thought those were only tested at Massey's. We also noticed a mysterious metal tube being transported here. Our cameras caught a steady stream of Raptor engines rolling by this week. You can always tune into McGregor Live to catch the action for yourself too. Fun fact, both sea level and vacuum engines sported 3-digit serial numbers this week, including Raptor number 100, a vacuum engine, so it won't be mounted to a booster, which for those unfamiliar, only utilizes sea level Raptors, without the bell extension optimized for the near vacuum of space. Of course, this isn't the 100th Raptor ever built though. SpaceX reset the count with Raptor 3, but hitting triple digits already is still mightily impressive considering the Raptor 3 was only fired for the first time in mid-2024, just a year and a half ago. We don't know if Raptor 100 will end up on Ship 39 or another in the future, but here's hoping SpaceX finally shares a photo of its final home. Now, let's bring it home to the spaceport that never sleeps. SpaceX is gearing up the Space Coast for Starship launch operations from historic Launch Complex 39A later this year, a massive milestone that expands beyond Starbase's current limits. While Gigabay at Roberts Road is currently under construction still, Starfactory 2.0 hasn't even been started yet, so Florida teams can't produce vehicles locally for the time being. Now, to bridge that production gap, SpaceX will use the brand new barge Marmac 31, aka You'll Thank Me Later. It'll initially be used to transport version 3 ships and boosters from Starbase to Port Canaveral. And we suspect that Gigabay's role here will be one of shelter and inspection, at least initially, as the site lacks megabays for storage and additional work as needed. 39A isn't the only Florida launch site, however. SpaceX acquired Space Launch Complex 37 from ULA on the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where they will build 2 launch towers and 2 dedicated catch towers at the site. Combined with Starbase's 2 launch facilities and Launch Complex 39A's, that's 5 towers in total, dramatically boosting operational capacity. Pad 37 will also feature an air separation unit like Starbase's for commodities, plus a liquefaction plant to convert natural gas to usable methane as propellant. This setup will support the rapid launch cadence as needed, just like in Starbase. That's a lot of tanker trucks being saved from the drive and the cost associated. Tower segments for all these sites are also being built at Roberts Road. This week, and rather surprisingly, Tower Module 6 for Slick 37 rolled out to the site. This seems not only out of order, but also premature, as we aren't quite sure of Pad 37's progress so far regarding foundation work. So our best guess here is that they're freeing up space for further module production, which they will need a lot of. Expect more of them to head towards Pad 37 soon, but stacking won't begin until groundwork is ready, supporting the towers, flame trenches, and launch mounts. After all, you don't want your launch site sinking into the ground. With Pad 2's Deluge system finally having performed a full test, we can breathe a light sigh of relief as final preparation for version 3 vehicle testing is upon us. Thus also meaning we are 1 week closer to version 3's long-awaited first flight, Flight 12. It's been a while, yeah, at this point we're over 4 months since Flight 11. We are long overdue for some action, but that is not too far away from now, thankfully. When do you expect to see Booster 19 rolled out for static fire testing? And I guess more immediately, when will Ship 39 roll out to finally begin testing? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thanks again to The Book by Hungry Minds for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to get 10% off your very own copy of the book by using the link in the description. I'm Max Edmonds for NSF. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.